should be recording. Yes, okay. So you probably should have all seen the recording notice that we're starting to record the meeting.
Yes.
We have our agenda today is, as you can see on the screen, I'm going to lead off the meeting with a sort of City of Shoreline centric focus on the McAleer Creek watershed within Shoreline, and which I think is kind of interesting. I started kind of geeking out on it yesterday, putting the slideshow together. We have a moment of recognition for Laura and a discussion of our priorities coming up for 2025 and looking ahead for what we want to do this year with the forum, some ideas. It's really an open discussion and can be brainstorming. Some announcements and updates after that, which we're going to try to get to Pat before he has to leave in about 35 minutes or so, as well as some announcements. I'm sorry, I just said announcements and updates. Public comment, if there's any discussions or questions from the public, and then closing. So, let's see. Next slide. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I should go back. We should do introductions. So welcoming everybody. And on behalf of City of Shoreline, I'm John Featherstone, Surface Water Wastewater Systems Manager. Why don't we kind of go around the virtual room and have elected officials first, if that's okay, introduce themselves, and then we can have staff introduce themselves and anyone else after that. So Aaron, I see your camera. We had your introduction, but why don't we do that again, I guess?
Sure, happy to. I'm Erin Murray. I am one of our council members in Mountlake Terrace, and glad to be here.
Thank you, Aaron. Will, I see your camera on.
Hello. The camera is kind of, there's a little sliding door.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah, I'm Will Chen, Edmonds council member.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for coming. And Tracy, I saw you turn your camera on.
Hi, yeah, thanks. And my name is Tracy Perrotani. I'm a council member in Lake Forest Park.
Thank you, Tracy. Do we have any other elected representatives with us? I'm not seeing any names I recognize, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Okay, staff, why don't you have at it, Laura and Pat? Oh, and Katie, sorry.
I'm Laura Reed. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for the City of Mountlake Terrace.
I'm Patrick Johnson, the City of Edmonds Stormwater Technician.
I'm Katie Phillips, Lake Forest Park Project Manager.
All right, thank you, staff. And I don't believe, do we have any other staff here who want to introduce themselves?
I'll say something. I'm Selena. I'm the park supervisor with City of Mountlake Terrace.
Hi, Selena. Thank you for coming. Anyone else who either staff or from other groups or from the public want to introduce yourself before we keep going?
Hi, this is Trisha Schoblum with Department of Ecology, the Lake Specialist for the Northwest Region. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Trisha. Thank you for coming. All right, last call for intros. Just unmute yourself and break in, or we'll just keep rolling.
I think I see Warren McAndrews on here. Yeah.
Hi, Warren.
You're calling me out. Okay, yeah, Warren McAndrews here. I'm just one of the lake residents. I record stuff for the rest of the residents on the lake.
Yes. Thank you, Warren.
Sorry,
Good
Warren.
to see you. Thank you for coming. All right, we will continue on with our agenda. Thank you for everyone for coming and for introducing yourselves. So I wanted to provide a bit of interest on for the forum's consideration on the City of Shoreline, McAleer, basically what parts of the McAleer Creek watershed do we are within our jurisdiction, and what kinds of things do we see going on in there, and what kind of projects and programs are we working on within those areas. And one of the things we've focused on a lot with this group is Echo Lake, which makes sense. Echo Lake is within the same drainage as McAleer and Lake Ballinger, and the outflows from Echo Lake do go into Lake Ballinger, and there are similar lakes with similar issues in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go kind of light on the Echo Lake piece today in the interest of time, and because I believe Stefan talked about Echo Lake last time in October, and I think we talked about it before that, maybe once or twice also last year. So I'll go a little light on the Echo Lake, but it'll give me a little opportunity to talk about other parts of our watershed. And again, kind of like focusing on our forum is not just all about Lake Ballinger, although that's certainly a big piece of it, but overall the health of the whole McAleer and I guess Hall Creek watershed, depending on where you're coming at it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just what parts of the McAleer Creek watershed are in Shoreline. Talk a little bit about some updates for things of interest within those catchments that Shoreline has for McAleer, including Echo Lake. And also some master planning updates. We're currently working on our surface water master plan. I'm hopefully over the hump on that, definitely with some of the big resource decisions. And there are some changes that we're going to be implementing in the next few years, starting even this year, that could be of interest to the forum and could be hopefully beneficial towards water quality in McAleer and Lake Ballinger. So moving on down, this is a map on the right you see of the heavier black outline is the entire McAleer Creek watershed. This map is from the City of Shoreline 2015 McAleer Creek Basin Plan, which I was fortunate to have worked on pretty early on in my time in Shoreline. I didn't start it, but I did finish it after one of my predecessors in this current position left, and long before I joined this current position. But I did get involved with this basin plan, which is really cool. So you can see on the map the big black outline of McAleer Creek watershed overlaps with the upland, and it starts in Linwood, really, which I believe is Hall Creek and Hall Lake, mostly, with Mountlake Terrace and Edmonds as our forum partners, and the next jurisdictions having sizable portions of that drainage boundary. And then you can see Shoreline with these rainbow-colored 7 smaller catchments. That's our bit of the McAleer watershed. And then you can see Lake Forest Park, which has the interesting and perhaps unenviable role of having most of the McAleer Creek main stem, but not a lot of the watershed itself. So Lake Forest Park really gets the downstream end of what all the rest of us are doing on the upstream, such as interjurisdictional coordination, but I do think it's interesting to look at this map with that stuff in mind. So just working real quickly through these 7 different rainbow-colored catchments, and this really is how Shoreline's McAleer Creek Basin is split up. It's not... we have other large basins within the city of Shoreline, like Bowen Creek and a pretty sizable chunk of Thornton Creek Basin. Those are our 2 larger basins than McAleer, but McAleer does constitute a pretty major area of the city, and we also have a pretty major chunk overall of the McAleer watershed. But they do really connect to the creek in different ways, so it's almost like this patchwork. So number 1 here you see in the purple, that's Echo Lake. And again, that's one of our really probably most urban portion of McAleer. It's all centered on Aurora. It's got Costco. It's got a bunch of redevelopment that's happening. Echo Lake has, some concerns with algae blooms, and I'll get to that. But it's really tends to be one of the areas of the McAleer drainage that gets most of our attention. And it does have a small stream, mostly piped, that discharges into Lake Ballinger. The second basin here, number 2, is what I call the Lake Ballinger drainage, and it drains into Lake Ballinger independently of the Echo Lake drainage. And it mostly is the cemetery and the King County Housing Authority site, a large, I think it's called Ballinger Homes or something. And it's just on the south side of 205th, and doesn't have a lot of public infrastructure, but it is a fairly sizable chunk of land that goes into the lake directly. Number 3 is perhaps one of the more interesting emerging drainages. It's around I-5, so it gets a lot of the washed out I-5 drainage. It also has the new light rail station at 185th and all of the light rail work along I-5. And it's also fairly densely developed, and it's looking to get more densely developed as the light rail area, sort of rezoned areas around the light rail fill in. It's also almost entirely piped before it gets into McAleer Creek. So again, very sort of not much open channel there, and a lot of road surfaces and other hard surfaces. Number 4 is really the only piece of that McAleer main channel that the city has, and it's mostly sort of centered around that interchange between I-5 and 205th, with a little bit of open channel natural that's downstream of there. Number 5 is an area of our city. It drains to Whisper Creek, which is one of the western tributaries to McAleer. But it's what we call it is Spring Hill in Shoreline, because there's so much shallow groundwater. It just pops out everywhere in a small neighborhood. So it's a pretty small area, but it has a lot of streams and wetlands and It's pretty soggy and tends to be somewhat problematic too for flooding and other drainage issues. Number 6 is something I'll be talking about in more depth that drains to Hillside Creek within Lake Forest Park, and we're getting pretty far down now in the watershed. And I don't think there's actually any part of Hillside Creek within Shoreline, but we have a pretty concentrated and a fairly urban area that number 6 drains out from North City towards that stream. And then last but not least, most downstream sort of downslope portion of our basin is number 7, Brookside Creek, and that's really a tiny little fringe part of the city that doesn't have much infrastructure to speak of at all. So that's kind of what Shoreline's managing when it comes to McAleer Creek and Lake Ballinger. Hopefully that's some interesting context for both our upstream neighbors at Edmonds and Mountlake Terrace and our downstream neighbors in Lake Forest Park. And, of course, actually, Lake Ballinger is downstream of Echo Lake and that other drainage. So it's kind of an interesting place in the basin to occupy. So within those catchments, Echo Lake, as I mentioned, has been getting a lot of attention. We've been having winter algae blooms. This is a drone picture, I think, from relatively recently. May have been over the summer, if I remember right. We have no blooms. I think things are finally clearing up, but we did have a fair amount of winter algae blooms and continued lake closures because they had toxic algae, or actually, I think we may have been down on toxicity, but just the sort of opacity of the water made us close the lake. I think we're starting to just remove the warning signs, but it's been a pretty rough winter as far as having late blooms happening. We have been working on our source control program within the Echo Lake neighborhood, including a couple of businesses that we've identified issues with that we've been following up. And one of them we've seen a lot of progress from is Sky Nursery. So I'm hopeful that Sky Nursery will continue to show the improvements that we've seen with sort of covering their stockpiles and maintaining their on-site system and just sort of better housekeeping. Because we've observed a fair amount of impacts coming from there before and are trying to not have that coming down into Echo Lake and using our source control program really for that purpose, which is, as I understand it, what ecology was intending us to do. So that's maybe a little early to call it success, but it's definitely progress. We're going in the right direction. Shoreline's also continuing to work on retrofitting our bioretention cells along Aurora, which were put in just a few years ago, but we found some issues with them functioning not necessarily as designed, and also most of them, or all of them, I believe, have the conventional bioretention soil mix, which is made out of compost and sand and has the potential to export nutrients to Echo Lake. So we want to do our part in keeping nutrients out of Echo Lake. So our plan is to replace all of those bioretention planter beds basically within the Aurora corridor, change the soil mix to the high performance mix, which does not export nutrients to it at all the same degree or really at all. But we need to do that sort of one step at a time, and we're piloting that work hopefully this summer with a couple sites so we can learn how to do this efficiently and then do it on a larger scale. And we're continuing, I think Stefan talked about this more in October, but we're continuing to work on managing the cyanobacteria issues in the lake, considering treatment approaches, maybe using oxygen saturation technology, that's OST, versus a chemical treatment like alum, but we're still not quite sure which one. And we do have some funding set aside in the next couple years, but this year is probably more of a, let's consider this further and try to make a decision and then start using some of that funding we have set aside next year. So that's my Echo Lake update. Some more sort of sites around the basin that maybe we don't hear about or talk about as much within this forum, but should be of interest is our Pump Station 26 project. It's a little bit of old news in that we finished construction a couple years ago. And you can see on the map here in the lower left where Pump Station 26 is. It's just a couple blocks from the 185th Street light rail station, so if that helps you kind of place where it is in the world. But the pump station pumps out inflows from several blocks, square blocks all around surrounding. It's kind of in a landscape, a bowl, like a topographic bowl. So everything goes down to the low spot where Pump Station 26 is, and then it pumps flows out of that spot into the WSDOT system, and the WSDOT system goes into McAleer Creek. So what we've done is we really enhanced our storage and infiltration functions, and we could have just kind of replaced the pumps and left everything else alone, but we decided that it would be in the long-term best interest to do a larger scale overhaul and get the benefits from that. So we put in some really large diameter, I think they're 8-foot diameter pipes. You can see next to that excavator in the upper right picture for scale how big those pipes are. And the cool thing that we found now that we've been operating this facility for a couple years is, and we didn't get good infiltration test results during construction or before construction, so it was a little bit like, is this not going to do much? But we've been getting excellent infiltration to the point where our pumps are hardly running, which basically means all the water that's coming down, even in fairly significant storms like the one we had, December 18th, where a lot of us got hit really hard for a half an hour early in the morning, did not really run the pump. So we're maximizing infiltration and storage here in a way that is directly keeping these flows from going into McAleer Creek. So it's kind of awesome. It's good to notice these successes. And sometimes it's hard to tell what projects succeed in until after they've been running for a while. And now we have some data to work with, and we can really see, yeah, this stuff is infiltrating really, really well. Another emerging project, and I know this is one that's on Lake Forest Park's radar, is sort of down where we get into Hillside Creek, one of our lower small, I think it was number 6 of those little tiny catchments within Shoreline. This is the first picture on the left is looking down 25th Ave northeast, and you have 24th Avenue coming down another hill to the left here at the bottom of that intersection. And then if you turn right here and you go about 100 yards, you're in Lake Forest Park. And I think Hillside Creek is right about there. So we've been having problems with this system. The slope is really unstable. We see washouts, and this dirt will come off of the slope and get into the roadway, and then the stormwater on the roadway will start to spill out of the ditch, and it'll push all this mess down the hill, also in Shoreline and also in Lake Forest Park, and eventually going into a stream with turbidity. It's all bad news in so many ways. So we have a new CIP, a new capital project that's starting. And these pictures are from 2023, except the one on the far right is 2017, but it looks almost identical. So this is a repeated issue that the city of Shoreline has been trying to improve. And we have the first phase of this work starting this summer to stabilize the ditch, basically, that has been getting blocked by these flows and then spilling out and conveying all that dirt down the hill. So we're going to enclose the ditch and make this whole thing more stable. We won't be able to fix that funky half pipe that's coming down the hill, which you can see in the sort of the 2 right pictures, or the center picture and the right picture. But we will come back and fix that hopefully within the next couple of years, and then won't be seeing this kind of thing happening, hopefully, at all. And again, that's dirt that's been eventually going into McAleer from this location. So not good. Moving on, I just want to give a real quick update on our City of Shoreline Surface Water Master Plan update and just the things that might appeal to this group. I don't want to go in depth. I could talk about this for a long time, but basically I'm going to give some background on sort of what is the master plan, how does it relate to how we do our utility work and the surface water work in the city, and move through this real fast, and an overview of our planning process and our results, and then really focus, I think, as pertinent to the forum's interests, on these 5 areas that we've identified for key program expansions, and we've increased our rates to collect revenue so we can deliver these things. And these will, I think, we'll see some positive effects all around the city of Shoreline, including within our McAleer basin. So yeah, Shoreline has a surface water utility. It's about 20 years old, and it was really established for regulatory compliance. And like many surface water utilities and similar groups at other cities, our goals are to work on reducing flooding, improving stormwater quality, and protecting habitat of streams. That's a picture of the team here on the right. The guy in the red jacket is actually our wastewater engineer, but everybody else here is our surface water team. We collect swim fees, like I think probably all other utilities in all these cities, and we had about $9 million in revenue this last year. The fees are collected proportional to basically how much how much a hard surface a property has, because that's how much runoff stormwater that they generally generate. And for 2025, our minimum fee right now is a little under $400 a year for like those single-family residential parcels, and for larger, more heavily developed parcels like shopping malls and schools and things like that, we can see over $100,000 a year for their surface water management fees, which I call swim fees in shorthand. And they're billed alongside property taxes. So this is kind of the revenue that drives our work and our funding. Our master planning process, we're doing about every 6 years. And right now I'm up at this red circle at the upper right. So step 4. So we started out about a year and a half ago or so. And these these green bubbles are when we update our council. So this diagram kind of shows how we're proceeding step by step along this way. And our first step was to just sort of tell council and the community what we're doing and get feedback. Our second step was a really big one where we identified our priorities based on what we heard from the community on what services are we not providing adequately for what you want to see, and what would you be willing to pay more to see more of. So we really framed that question. Step 3 was getting down to picking an option, sort of like how much work do we want to do and how do we want to fund it, and what rates will that, how will that impact folks' rates that they're paying. And right now we've made all those decisions. It's been plugged into our current budget for as relevant, and I'm getting to the point where the master planning team, are trying to wrap all this up with a document, hopefully within the next few months. This is a really key. We did a lot of engagement earlier on in the process, and I'm not going to read all of this slide, but we did ask our ratepayers what kinds of things were they willing to see more, to pay increased fees to see us doing more of. And as you can see here, the most popular things were protecting streams, fighting climate change, making shoreline greener, of course, in ways that are also surface water beneficial, restoring our streams, and slightly less support for reducing flooding, removing hard surfaces, and installing new systems where they were needed. And a fairly small number of folks saying they didn't want to pay more fees. So we used this information, especially focusing on those top 2, 3, 4 priorities, to update our service level goals. And again, I'm going to move through this quickly just in the interest of time, but we really wanted to make sure that we're growing, that we are reflecting our community's priorities. So we added a new goal about converting our urban surfaces to trees and gardens and soaking up rainwater, which is really about that sort of climate resilience and protecting streams more. And then we provided these recommendations for program expansions. And these are where I'm going to sort of relate them to McAleer Creek, and then I'll be done with this part of the presentation. But our capital improvement program is really the biggest expenditures that we have, and we've planned a new round of projects for 2025 through 2030. And we've already seen 2 projects within our McAleer Basin, the ones I just showed you, that are related to flooding, addressing flooding and erosion issues and failing infrastructure. And we have 2 new programs that I think will be of interest to McAleer Creek and the basin, is doing more green stormwater, having a program, a set of funding just to do green stormwater. So that's things like rain gardens and bioretention. We're going to have a program dedicated doing that based on priority sites, and hopefully we'll have some of those in the McAleer Basin. We're also starting a stream restoration program to look for places where we can, physically make stream habitat better that are within the city's control. So places we have parks or right-of-way or easements that we can do that work within. We have a couple other areas that we're adding in this master plan capital program, but we're really, a lot of the work that will be within McAleer Basin will be either within those 2 programs I just mentioned that are in blue here, or working on Echo Lake algae management. And we have a few years beyond 2030 that will be installing new drainage infrastructures in an area where it's needed, but we'll have another master planning cycle before 2030. So we'll be refreshing those CIP priorities before we get to them. We're doing some equipment purchases, and I'm just going to move through this quick, but we're basically purchasing a second street sweeper. We already have one, but it hasn't really been adequate, especially with our new NPDES permit requirements for street sweeping programs. So we really will also be eventually buying a Vector and possibly a permeable pavement cleaning machine in a few years, and having some staff to run these new equipment. But we're really expecting within the McAleer Basin benefits from our additional street sweeping with this second sweeper that will allow removing pollutants, especially along Aurora, which we have a decent length of Aurora in our city, drains to Echo Lake, and then McAleer, as well as other fairly major streets, portions of them within the McAleer Basin, like Meridian, 200th, 1st, 5th, 15th, 19th, 24th, Perkins, et cetera. So this street sweeping has been shown to be a very effective way to remove pollutants, and we certainly expect to see our sweeper being used within portions of the McAleer Basin that will be getting better swept than it is currently, a higher service level. We'll also be expanding our LID rebate program on private property, which funds ratepayers can get a rain garden, can install a rain garden on their property and get the city to basically reimburse them for it. and we are increasing our rebate amount. We're increasing all sorts of ways that folks can access this and trying to add this benefit to larger sites as well. So it's not just single-family residential properties. So we expect that our portions of the McAleer Creek Basin will also be seeing some benefits from this expanded program. We'll be potentially hiring a new surface water inspector to help us with our construction stormwater inspections and our source control inspections, which we're currently outsourcing outside of our group. And again, we're seeing potential improvements in our service levels for these inspections that having someone in our group would help with, rather than the ways that we're currently approaching this. So again, hopefully we'll see with this new position, we'll see less sources of pollution across the city of Shoreline, including in the McAleer Creek Basin. And last but not least, we're expanding our stream water quality monitoring program. Due to our Salmon Safe certification, Salmon Safe really wanted to see us gathering more and additional data from what we're currently doing, and differentiating between stormwater and base flow types of conditions. And we'll be first doing this in our Thornton and Bowen Creeks, because those are the larger basins that the city has more influence over. But we could potentially learn things from this work that we can apply to McAleer. And since we're purchasing special like auto sampling equipment for this work, we could potentially also use it in McAleer Creek later, if that seemed like something that would be of interest. That's my bit. Sorry, I kind of ran through it quickly, but maybe we could leave, if there's questions, till after we've run through a couple of these other things, just in the interest of time. But right now, what I wanted to do is hand the mic to Laura. And
actually, I was thinking of handing it over to Patrick, because I know he has to go at 2:40. So maybe maybe I should hand it over to Patrick first.
Yeah, I mean that's
okay.
That's your good call. Yeah, so that was a great actually presentation, John. I really like hearing what my neighbors are doing. It's very inspiring to see you guys run through your master plan, and hopefully someday ours can turn out just like yours and make huge dramatic improvements. So
thank you.
Yeah. I will be fairly quick here. Not too much to update from Edmonds' perspective, but I did want to just give a quick update on the lake levels that are happening currently for Lake Ballinger. As you know, we had a lot of rain in December, very little rain in January, which is great for this time of year, which means we have a lot of storage right now. So that's really helpful this time of year. Often residents are kind of on the edge of their seats waiting for the next big one to go outside and see how close the water is to their basements. So really happy for, that those of us, maybe Laura and myself, who maybe receive the most phone calls about, where can we get sandbags and whatnot. And of course, Edmonds residents, majority of you are Edmonds residents that surround the lake. Sandbags are always something that we provide here at the city. If you do need us to kind of help armor your basement or garages or doors when the lake rises. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We have had some issues with the lake level monitor on the Edmonds side. However, between electrical issues and phone connection issues, it is back up and running, so it should read correctly at this point. So if you go through the Edmonds website, there is a section to view the lake level monitor, and you can get a real-time update on what that is. So just kind of throwing out a reminder there. And a little bit larger issue is for feels like years now, I've been mentioning this sort of dilapidated abandoned house on the south end of Lake Ballinger. It's not only been an eyesore, but it's become a neighborhood safety issue with transient people kind of hanging out, sleeping in it, leaving a fair amount of litter and garbage and whatnot. So the update is we have officially purchased the property from the homeowner. It is now officially an Edmonds property. And with that, we have fenced off the property with chain link, and come the spring, hopefully, of this year, we will be demolishing the buildings. We'll be leaving the foundations, but we'll be demolishing all those structures and hauling out all the debris, the garbage, and everything else. And so we're essentially going to leave it in a dormant state for roughly a year until all the necessary paperwork can be completed. And then we'll go ahead and probably in a year from now, start following through on a restoration plan. So we will be working with Department of Ecology to restore this property much more than it is right now. And again, future plans, designs, they're up in the air right now. What else can we do with it? Can we improve it? Can we make stormwater quality improvements? Maybe, yes, I hope so. But right now we're going to try to restore this dilapidated, unsightly sort of property to a more natural state, which is super positive. I'm glad we're sort of reaching the end of this saga. So I did want to just mention all that. That was kind of fast as well. But yeah, so from the Edmonds perspective, I think that's more or less what I got. If anybody has questions for Edmonds, please throw them in the chat. And I'll have to leave the forum shortly, but I will see your questions. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. And it's exciting that house is moving ahead. I know it's been a long time coming.
It has been
a priority.
And, yeah, and I think next meeting, I hope to have some pictures of sort of, so because I keep referencing this house, and I'd like to be able to show this is what it was, and this is what we're doing. And hopefully next meeting in April, I'll be able to accomplish that.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Pat. And hope you have a good meeting as you duck out of here in a couple minutes.
Thank you.
So Laura, can I pass the mic back to you?
Yes.
For your announcement.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that sadly this is my last meeting of the Ballinger Forum because I am retiring April 2nd. So I will be leaving, but I just wanted to, I was thinking about this meeting and I had 15 minutes, and so I sat down and kind of wrote up some of the things that have been accomplished over the past 7 years since I've been a part of the forum. I mean, we've had 100% turnover of the people that I started with. So it's really a very, vibrant and, we're doing a lot of things and there's a lot of people coming and going quite a bit, but we have now an integrated aquatic vegetation management plan for the city, for the lake, which, is something we can use to manage any kind of invasive weeds we've got coming through. We've been successful in getting 3 ecology grants to control aquatic weeds. And honestly, the most exciting thing I think is that through that we were able to get rid of 17 acres of Eurasian water milfoil, which I don't know if you guys remember what the lake was like back in 2018, but it was pretty thick with this stuff. And we started out from a position of being like, this is terrible, what can we do about it, to now where, we can say that there's really none that Warren was able to find in his search. And also the, the Aquatechnics, the herbicide firm that came in and got rid of it for us. Let's see what else has been kind of exciting that we've done. We've transitioned from 100% meeting in person to 100% meeting virtual, made through the pandemic. Those were there were some pretty dark times, I think. I remember when our mayor from the city of Mountlake Terrace, who was kind of one of the founding members of the forum, passed away quite suddenly, and we, still kept going. But that was, it was sad to do so without Jerry Smith. I've attended, 30 meetings over the years, and it's been an honor to work with you guys. I think the last thing that I just wanted to kind of mention is that now, in all of the cities that are upstream of Lake Ballinger, phosphorus water quality treatment is required in Edmonds, in Mountlake Terrace, and in Linwood, which means that we're reducing the amount of phosphorus that goes into Lake Ballinger and consequently reducing the amount of toxic algae blooms that we might have. So I just wanted to say, like, things have happened. We've done a lot of stuff, and it has been great to have the chance to work with the forum, because I don't think this is a very common type of organization. I get a lot of interest from people. We get a lot of hits on our website from people saying that they wish they had something like this where the municipalities could work together on common issues. And so it's fortunate that the Lake Ballinger Forum exists, and I hope it continues to exist for quite some years from now.
Well, thank you, Laura. And I just want to honor your service to the forum. And, when I started the forum, I was, it's been only, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years now, but you were definitely like the hand on the steering the ship, the hand on the wheel. And it's a steady presence, and you really sort of run this show for a long time, and we will certainly miss you. And I totally agree that having this forum is great. It's very unique. It allows for us all to interact on a staff level that we probably wouldn't know each other nearly as well. And there's other benefits just beyond this sort of specific focus that go much deeper and further. We can call each other up and be like, hey, did you know this happened? Or what are you doing in this situation, kind of thing. So it's great. I know the elected officials have been really helpful and interactive and participatory, and as well as other members of our community, the folks who live on the lake and other people who have interest. So I feel like you've been really, as Pat said in the chat here, he said, I'm going to miss you, or going to miss you. Thanks for everything you've done. You've been a great steward for the lake and community. Yeah, and I completely agree. So we will keep the torch, burning. And moving into the future, this is our second year sort of post-interlocal agreement for the forum, where I think the jurisdictions participating all agreed that we had sort of outlived really the purpose of the interlocal. And so we could just exist as interested folks who share this, common passions for the lake and for water quality and things like that. So I want to thank you, and have put a little picture of you riding off into the sunset. I'm a little jealous, honestly.
That's really, that's nice. I like that. That's classy.
Yeah, like that's us at the sort of Lake Ballinger going, all right, happy trails.
Oh, thank you. That's so funny.
But yeah, I mean, we will totally miss you, and I hope you get to enjoy, not thinking about stormwater and surface water for a while, if that's what you want to do.
Definitely. I'll get a screenshot of this. This is funny.
I can send you the deck if you want. But yeah, that's so thank you, Laura, and I think we all owe you a huge debt of gratitude. So I just wanted to sort of segue into our next topics then of, it's a new year, it's a new forum. Laura, we're going to miss you and have a sort of a hole in our staff leadership. But I did want to provide an opportunity for this gathering, and it doesn't have to be in real time right now. Folks, feel free to email me if you want afterwards, or reach out to your staff representative from your jurisdiction if you prefer. But my sort of sense is that going forward, and I know we don't have Pat here, but Laura, Katie, and I are still here. We are open to possibilities and goals for 2025. Really, it's really wide open. I think we know that the forum is going to continue to look at Lake Ballinger and how, what's going on with the lake. Is there things we can do to make the water quality better? I liked how Laura mentioned the phosphorus treatment and all the areas upstream. And I didn't want to interrupt, but Shoreline is also requiring phosphorus treatment in all the areas of our city that drain to Lake Ballinger. So, this will take a while for that kind of change to happen as redevelopment occurs. Really, those is when those standards come into play. But I think we're all moving in the right direction and continuing to work together. So I'll stop yapping for a moment. But my understanding is, we'll continue to focus on Lake Ballinger in this group. We'll continue to have quarterly meetings and sort of talk about the things that we've been talking about. I'm curious if anyone has any comments, requests, questions about things that we could or should maybe talk about this coming year. Do we want to mix things up at all? I see Katie saying in the chat that Lake Forest Park will be hosting the next meeting in April in 3 months. So you can reach out to her if there's a topic. Will, I see your hand and your camera on.
Hey, John, thank you for the presentations. A lot of good information. I just wondering, you mentioned the salmon save programs, that things that you have done. Just wondering if I don't know what's the specific program that has been done to achieve the salmon save, and if there's any things that can be transferable to other watersheds. For example, in City of Edmonds, we have different creek, the marsh, the big effort in trying to achieve the same thing that you have been talking about. So any comments or resources would be appreciated.
Yeah, no, and thanks, Will. That's a great question. I would say Salmon Safe is it's a pretty small program right now. I think City of Shoreline, as far as I understand it, and Portland, Oregon are maybe the only 2 cities that have been certified. The organization is based out of Portland for Salmon Safe, but the idea is they are wanting, and they certify more than just cities. They also certify businesses, agribusiness like farms, airports, ports. So it can be sort of other smaller governmental entities or private businesses and things like that. But the idea is they award the idea that you can be Salmon Safe certified if you go above and beyond the minimum sort of legal or regulatory requirements to treat your water and sort of clean up after yourself. So some examples of what that looks like in Shoreline, and I guess the idea is sort of like LEED certification, like LEED that they have for buildings. You you can have a green building that gets LEED certified because they have silver and gold. And I don't know the LEED program that well, but it's that idea of going above and beyond the minimum. So what Salmon Safe has had us do is try to clean up our maintenance yards. So our maintenance programs are just our yards and our sort of operational and maintenance footprints are sort of as least impactful as they could be. So things like, don't leave metal sitting out where it's exposed to water, because those metals will go into the rainwater, and that rainwater will get into the storm drain, and that'll have adverse effects on salmon. Using all natural, I shouldn't say using all natural, but using pesticide sparingly and having natural alternatives to pesticides. Minimizing our use of salts, potassium chloride salts for de-icing, and using alternative de-icers and things like that are less impactful to streams. Doing projects and programs that are, improving water quality, measuring water quality, like I talked about our water quality monitoring program, or improving habitat. So it's really unique to each city. And Salmon Safe would, if you were interested, you could reach out to them. I can give you their contact information if you want. But they would sort of come out for consultation. You pay them a fee to do the consultation, and then they customize what you need to do based on what your city has room for improvement to do. So it's kind of squishy, and we're already doing a lot already to meet our ecology permits for the municipal stormwater permits. So they're looking for us to go a bit above and beyond what our municipal stormwater permits do. So what Edmonds would do, I don't know. We don't have a big marsh near our waterfront like you do.
So basically, you enroll with this organization, and then kind of look at the to-do list, to-do chart, and then kind of work with them to accomplish those things, and then they will recognize you by issuing a certification for recognition of the achievement.
Yes, exactly. And then you have to renew it every 5 or 6 years, which is what we just renewed ours. So yeah, that is.
And does that help the city like Shoreline to get other government, federal grant or state grant?
I think it helps if we're going for, like, let's say a water quality grant, from ecology. We could say, hey, we're salmon safe and this is in line with that program. I don't know how much it helps. It certainly is mostly, I think, about the city getting to say we're salmon safe and we're doing this extra work because we care and we're trying to do what we can.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a good program. It's definitely, they come at it from a policy and a science side. So we've had, like, they would come out and look at your city and sort of take a tour and review your programs, and then they would have recommendations. And we would typically sort of do a lot of back and forth, and we'd be like, well, that's great from a policy or scientific standpoint, but we have this and this and that limitation, or this process that needs to be adhered to for changing that. We need to have budget for this. We can't just sort of, pull that money out of nowhere. But they were good at listening, and it was an overall really good process. So, if you want to look into it for Edmonds, I could certainly give you contact information for that.
Yeah, maybe let me check with Pat. Maybe we already have done something that it's already in the program. But thank you so much for the information.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Any other comments or questions on the forum? And if we're not coming up with sort of planning for the next year, our staff team can continue to work on things. Oh, hey, Tracy, I see your hand.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. And I was just wondering if we could get an update on the I-5 culverts. I heard they were delayed now.
Oh, yes. That was on my updates questions for Laura, but we can go there now.
Okay.
And Laura did a non-disclosure, so I don't know. You could probably only tell us what you can tell us within that.
I wish I had more information, Tracy. I haven't met with them recently. I do. The impression that I got when last time I talked to WashDOT was that they have to do the I-5 culvert work. The I-5 culvert plus the 2 culverts that are in the Cloverleaf kind of area. The one that they weren't going to do is the one that's on an intermittent creek in the city of Mountlake Terrace. So that's not happening. If I find out anything more, I'll definitely let you know, but that's my understanding of it at this point. It could be that the funding, I don't even know if it's based on federal funding, and the federal funding is up in the air, as we all know, as of last Friday night.
Right.
So I wish I had more to tell you.
All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
And Tracy, what I've heard, and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of WashDOT, and it's sort of almost like a rumor, but I've heard that it's being paused, that all the culverts are paused, and it's not like they're going away, but I think it's uncertain as to sort of when the funding will be freed up and at what point will that work resume. I don't believe they're just dropping it and walking away from it. I haven't heard that, but I've definitely heard it just being paused. And I think some of the folks at WashDOT that I had heard from informally, that's basically all they knew. So my sense is that it was a state funding shortfall issue, but I don't know. It could also be tied up with the federal stuff. I'm guessing it's probably complex and maybe somewhat fraught, which is why they haven't made a public announcement. So, but I think it's, as I understand it, it's paused for the foreseeable future.
I appreciate your comment, and I was just suggesting it as a potential topic for an upcoming meeting. We usually have somebody from WashDOT come and talk to us about it, at least annually, I think. So
yes, we've certainly checked in with them before. Okay, that's a good topic.
Thanks.
I can definitely provide the updated information on who the project manager is, because the guy who came and talked to us before has also retired, but there's a replacement. Yeah, Tim
now is not.
Okay. Yeah, he's retired, but he's been replaced with Mark Conniffin or something like that. Anyway, I'll send that to you.
Okay. That
just on that topic, there was a very interesting piece on Sound Politics a week or two ago that looked into the whole budget issue around the culvert repairs across the state. I don't know if anybody else heard that.
I haven't seen that. No. Where did you see that? Do you know?
It was on NPR.
Okay.
If you go to the KUOW website or their app and look through the podcast for Sound Politics. You can find it.
Okay. I might want to listen to that because I haven't really heard an accounting of it yet.
Yeah, they're not speaking about a specific pause, but they're pointing out the challenge with the funding for that. And they provide some very good history on the whole lawsuits and stuff around the settlement with the tribes that led to a lot of this culvert work.
Right. Well, thank you. I'll look that up and try to get more informed on it because it certainly is something of interest to many of us. Well, thanks, Tracy. That's an excellent topic recommendation. Any other ideas? And we can sort of table this. I think it's the question we can always discuss in our meetings. What do we want to do with this forum? What's of most interest and value to those of us who are attending? Let's see, Warren, I see a chat question from a couple minutes ago where you're saying it's a little early since we haven't implemented the Echo Lake oxygenation system, but Ballinger had the same certification problem. Yes. Bid project is going out for bids this year. Warren, which project are you referring to? If you don't mind me asking.
Sorry, I'd unclicked there. Yeah, the I-5 culvert. I heard that it was going out for at least bidding cost-wise.
Okay. I don't know. I hadn't heard that. Anyone else heard that? And Zach, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I see you just snuck in. I don't know if you have any insight to the WashDOT culvert questions specific to the McAleer one or any of the other ones.
No, I think last I heard was Tim retired and we have a new PM, but that's about all I know. I heard it was, like I said, I think their official version is it's paused right now, but that's the last I heard. And then I don't know if you saw, there's more bad news for salmon recovery today. I think the federal government may have frozen all grant programs. Yeah, I just saw that email came in during this meeting and I haven't looked at it yet, but certainly not a good time to be relying on federal funding for anything. I just have to laugh with the gallows humor, but yeah, there could be a lot of ramifications on that. So, okay, well, we will continue. And I see Katie sent in the chat that if there's a topic, you can email Katie. She put her email in the chat. And of course, you can reach out to any of us in the forum for our next meeting. I'm going to keep moving through our agenda. We can always come back to this. Oh, I just muted myself again. Okay. We did the announcements and updates. I think we talked about the Lake Ballinger. Pat did that before he left. The level monitor, the abandoned house, the WashDOT culvert. Oops, I didn't mean to move that yet. Are there any other topics as far as wet season impacts to date within the basin? I think as Pat said, it's been pretty dry. We had that one event on December 18th, but I don't think we really had a lot of flooding within this basin. We may have had some localized urban types of flooding issues. But I don't really have any wet season impacts I can recall or point to. And Laura, do you have any other updates or the maintenance update?
I always just check in with the stormwater supervisor over Public Works to see if we've caught any beavers or if we've removed any fallen trees. There was a tree that fell during the large windstorm that we had a few weeks back that has been removed downstream of the weir on McAleer, just so it won't cause any backup or get a bunch of stuff caught on it. But that's all I have to report.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Katie, do you have any announcements or updates from Lake Forest Park?
No, we definitely had some wet season impacts in Lion Creek, but not McAleer Creek, and happy to report all those have been cleared up. We have removed a lot of downed trees, but I also I didn't chime in earlier. I wanted to also thank Laura and say that you've been a great resource, and just personally as a newcomer and someone that's less familiar with the subject matter, I really appreciate everyone on this forum for the sharing of knowledge. And thanks also for your presentation, John. I'm happy to hear that there's going to be work happening on that Hillside Creek, just up 25th there. That's great. So good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I know we sent a lot of sediment into your jurisdiction last year, or
Yeah.
it was about a year and a month or two ago.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's cleared up now. We're good now.
Well, hopefully we can avoid that again. Great. Well, thank you, Katie. I'm going to keep moving with the slides. And really, we're at the end of the meeting. We're coming in right on an hour. Of course, I'd want to hear from anyone. This is kind of the open discussion section. Feel free to jump in the chat. Yeah, turn on your camera. Go ahead, please, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks. And just wanted to mention a program that we just started at the Lake Forest Park Stewardship Foundation. I'm going to drop it in the chat here. It's basically this we call the Stewardship Stream Initiative. We got a grant from King County Waterworks. We have about a dozen students from Shoreline College, from UW Bothell, and from North Seattle College to go sample the streams on a monthly basis for both biology and chemistry. And specifically, I really appreciated your presentation because we're looking at the downstream portions of Brookside, Hillside, and Whisper. And so we're looking at nitrogen and phosphorus specifically for those guys. And so we'll give you an update on what we find. The program is supposed to keep going until June, and we're going to be presenting at the Undergraduate Research Symposium at UW Seattle in May. So if you have a chance to pop by Mary Yates Hall on that day and take a look at our posters, that might be cool. Otherwise, I can show them to the forum at some later meeting.
That is fantastic, and I love that combination of grant funding and students doing the work and like sampling your tributaries, because those are sometimes don't get as much attention as other larger systems. So please share that data, and I might put on our agenda potentially for April, and that's the one LFP is hosting. If you want to give more information on that, if you have it by then, that would be great.
Will do. Thanks.
There was also I forget what the name of this scientist is, but there's a UW professor who does fishery stuff. I wish I could remember his name, but I asked if he would come present to Lake Forest, not Lake Forest Park, the McAleer Creek Lake Ballinger watershed, and I haven't heard back from them yet, but apparently he studies some of the salmon in the streams in Lake Forest Park, like at McAleer and Lyon. So I'd love to hear more about his work in this forum.
If it's Jeff Jensen, he's a neighbor of mine. I could go ask him.
Yes, that's okay. Jeff, and I emailed him, and I haven't heard back yet. But if you wouldn't mind tapping him,
absolutely.
He presented at a meeting of this forum last year.
Was it just last year? Okay, maybe he does not want to come back, but I'd be interested in hearing if he has anything new he'd like to share. But I think that's a good point. I was trying to remember if we had him or not. I think I wasn't at that meeting, so I may have forgotten that he presented. Thanks for the reminder. Will Chen, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, just a quick comment and question. Want to say thank you to Lola for your service. You have been steadfast in this program. A quick question is on the Lake Ballinger construction. I think there's a stage 2 that's including the watching station on the north end of the lake. Any update on the progress on that?
That project is being led by Danelle Dio. So I don't have an update on that one. I'm sorry. But I know that they're, I think continuing to work on the design. But I can find out and get back to you on that.
Okay, last December, I kind of remember that the ETA is about summer of 2025. Just because some residents were asking, that's why I'm asking.
I'll ask Danelle and email you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I think we've covered it all. That's all I had, at least. Any other last thoughts, questions, comments for the good of the order, or we can adjourn and be done. I think I was hoping to be done in 60 minutes instead of 90 anyway. But yeah, Tracy, go ahead. I see your camera on. Oh, just to say goodbye. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I will figure out how I can post this video and make it available so anybody who missed this meeting can watch the recording of the meeting. So thank you everybody for your time and for listening and discussing. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Laura,
John.
again.
Thank you all.
Thank
It's
you,
been a
Laura.
great honor to work with you
Thanks.
all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye now.
everybody.